Hey, APUSHers, let's do a quick series on how to write. Here's episode 1, where we're going to go through the first SAQ option on secondary sources. If you don't know me, I'm Annie Jensen, and I have graded AP exams for 6 years, and I have graded thousands of responses, and so I'm going to be including my best tips here for how to make sure you're getting the points on the actual day of the AP exam. For this series, we're going to be using the questions from 2023 Set 1. So my best strategy for you is to pull up those questions, to go to APUSH FRQ, click on the link, and then you're going to click 2023 Set 1. So when I introduce the question, then go do the question, and then come back and hear how I would go about it and compare what you did. So when you get to your APUSH short answer section, you're going to be given 4 responses and you have to answer 3 of them. The first one is the secondary source comparison. I call this dueling historians, where you're going to get 2 excerpts from a historian and you need to compare their interpretation of the same event. This question can be a huge time waster because you have to read so much. So what I encourage students to do is quickly look at the question stems, figure out if it's a topic you know a lot about or not. So for example, this one is about the New Deal. If you feel like you know the New Deal, then you read it and you start to answer it. However, if you don't feel comfortable with it, move on to another question and come back and then spend whatever time you have left on it. So my best tip right now is to pause the video, go do the question, time yourself, try to take 12 or so minutes and answer the question. Once you come back, we're going to talk through it. So question A is always going to ask the same thing. It's going to ask you to compare the interpretations of the historians. And so what I want for you to do is think of this as a 3-sentence format. You're going to first just briefly write what that difference is. And then you're going to explain something from the first historian and something from the second historian. So my tip for you on this, just a little pet peeve from a lot of AP readers, is always refer to the historians by their last name. You don't know them personally, so use their last names. Okay, so when I look at these 2 historians and their interpretation of the New Deal, there's quite a few differences, but the one that stands out to me the most that I would say is the main difference between Cohen and Nat Katznelson's interpretation of the New Deal is who supported the New Deal. So there's my introduction sentence, who supported the New Deal. Then what I would do is I would describe how Cohen explains how immigrants, working class, how a wide variety of diverse Americans supported the New Deal. However, Katznelson describes that the New Deal was supported by many racist whites. And so there you can see how I provided the introduction sentence and an example for each. Okay, so for parts B and C, you need to provide evidence to support each author. So you don't need to make this fancy. You can literally just say one piece of evidence to support Cohen is. So for part B, what stands out to me is the realignment of African Americans to the Democratic Party. So I would write something like some evidence to support Cohen's argument would be the new voting base of the Democratic Party in the 1930s. Many African Americans shifted from voting from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. And then for C, you would say one piece of evidence to support Katznelson. So what strikes me as a piece of evidence that could be used here would be the continued allowance of discrimination in New Deal programs. And so something like, because programs like the Works Progress Administration allowed state laws to enforce the program, it allowed for Southern states to continue to use segregation within the programs, which benefited the continuation of white supremacy. So now that you've written the question and you've heard my sample responses, I would now go to the sample responses that are included on that same tab. So if you look at APUSH FRQ's 2023 Set 1, Question 1 SA, that's where you will see the rubric and sample responses so you can compare what you wrote to other options that were accepted by the College Board last year. So I hope that review helped. Next episode, we'll go through the primary source short answer question. Stay tuned.